Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Boy, we have a lot to discuss because our last show was Thursday, so that means Donald Trump and Putin's disastrous meeting in Alaska, where Trump had American soldiers bend on their knees, literally roll out a red carpet, while Putin and his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, laughed in our face. Then Donald Trump said he no longer cared about a ceasefire in Ukraine and just accepted all of Putin's talking points. And we have Donald Trump's disastrous meeting, Michael Cohen, with those European leaders yesterday. We have Donald Trump taking a phone call from Vladimir Putin while he was with those European leaders, walked out, spoke to Putin for 40 minutes, and Donald Trump said the reason he walked out was he didn't want to be disrespectful to Vladimir Putin. Here's what Donald Trump said today. Let's play it.
During the meeting yesterday, when you decided to call Vladimir Putin, what was the reaction among the other people in the room, and what was President Putin's reaction to being brought into a phone call in the middle of your meeting?
Well, I think they expected it. I didn't do it in front of them. I thought that would be disrespectful to President Putin. I wouldn't do that because they have not had the warmest relations. And actually, President Putin.
I don't want to be disrespectful to Putin. And then Caroline Levitt at a disastrous press conference that Caroline Levitt held earlier today, she was asked, well, if your goal here, Caroline, Trump regime, is that everybody gets on the same page, right? Europe, Zelensky, Putin. If Putin calls you and you're in the White House with the European leaders, Zelensky says he's not afraid to do a meeting with Putin. Didn't you say, Donald, that you were going to set up a trilat? That's what Trump keeps calling a trilateral meeting between Zelensky and Putin. So why would it be disrespectful to Putin if you just put him on the phone while everybody's there? Zelensky could speak to him. You think that's disrespectful to Putin? Watch Caroline. It's a good question. Watch Caroline Levitt's response.
Both Russia and Ukraine to make that bilateral happen as we speak. Sean.
Hey, if the point is to get everybody on the same page, why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean. The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President Putin on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single
there was so many. There was. I mean, could you
just talk about this, Cohen? I want to throw it to you, but progress, right? So the goal of Friday was ceasefire, or Trump said there would be severe consequences, right? So there was no ceasefire. Okay. Well, then the goal of Monday with the European leaders was set a trilateral meeting between Zelensky and Putin and Donald Trump. Well, that didn't happen. And then get security guarantees from Russia, allow Russia to allow security guarantees, Article 5-like guarantees, which Trump said he got, but Putin's been saying on Russian TV, no way, that's not happening. Russia's saying, no, there's never a deal on that. So there's been zero progress, but corporate media acts like, ooh, he met with the world leaders, and look, like it's so not normal what we're seeing. Sorry about that.
No, we're normalizing. It's exactly what I was going to say. We're normalizing this sort of nonsense. I don't understand. I truly don't. And I don't understand why people show up to these pressers when you're going to get lied to. Unless, of course, it's a question that's asked from Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, where it's a prepared question in advance that you actually prepared for him to read. I don't understand, to be honest, why anybody shows up to these pressers. They're so absolutely ridiculous. It's like, where is the follow-up? Imagine that you are the New York Times. And I understand that Trump has an issue with the New York Times. I get it. But you turn around and you make a response right off the rip when they ask you a very straightforward question. Why is it disrespectful? Ben, you're asking that question. I want to know the question. He's part of the press pool. He's asking a legitimate and a fair question, and the best answer that you get is, well, of course you would ask that. You're Midas Touch Network. You're not fair. You're not legitimate. Imagine somebody responds to you with that. How about you respond back to her? Well, maybe if you would actually tell us the truth instead of your spin, right? You can call us fake news. We call you the spin master. How about you just tell us why? I'd love to hear it from you, Ben. Why?
Exactly. And the reality is, I mean, when I never show these things live, right? So I need to watch it, be able to fact check it, be able to call it out in real time, what is transpiring here. And so I want to show you this as well. This is where Trump is asked, tell us, like, what are the severe consequences that you say are, you said there would be severe consequences. So what's going to happen? Right?
Well, how about you tell us what they are?
What they are. Here, play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a ceasefire. If you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept. I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
So he's just making up deals.
Yeah. Can you answer one quick question for me? Is it 6 wars that he stopped, or is it 7? And
he makes up the numbers. Yeah.
What are those wars that have stopped? I'm not trying to be snarky or
I'll tell you what he considers. I'll tell you what he considers, and it's all false. So he says that he resolved the war between India and Pakistan, which India says you had nothing to do with at all. You please stop saying that, because you're infringing on our sovereignty as a nation. And Trump says, I just dangled some trade in front of India, and that's why they backed down. And India's like, we don't even have a trade deal. What the hell are you talking about? He claims he did the peace deal with Thailand and Cambodia. He claims he did the peace deal between Rwanda and Congo. He claims he did a peace deal between, who else did he say he'd do a peace deal between? I'll try to remember the others, but he says that he mentions it. India and Pakistan. Those one of his. Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yes,
he says that it would not have been a peace deal if it wasn't for him there. Iran and Israel. He takes credit for the war that broke out, and then he said Iran and Israel is one of the ones that he takes credit for, which we now know Iran is more powerful.
Serbia and Kosovo.
But those in Serbia and Kosovo, those are the ones that he claims that he solved. He promised he would end the war in Ukraine in 20. And what he says too, though, with India and Pakistan is he goes, there would have been a nuclear war. I stopped the nuclear war. He goes, they were about to launch nukes at each other. I stopped it. That's why I should get the Nobel Peace Prize there. And then he says the same thing. He goes, what he deserves credit for when it comes to Russia's invasion of Ukraine is that if it wasn't for him, there would be World War III. So we should all be thankful that he stopped World War III. So these are their deranged and unhinged, talking points. But it just shows you, Cohen, that you can't have logical conversations with these people, and our corporate news just lets them, just
say whatever they want.
Lie. Just okay. I mean, look, could you imagine if Biden said peace in 24 hours and didn't do it? Impeached. He's gone. I mean, the Democrats would say, you get the hell out of here. Everybody would say, you get the hell out of here. I mean, but then Trump goes, oh, I was being sarcastic. It was just part of a big joke that I was telling. You know, come on. I mean, did you see the post he made this morning, Cohen? The post he made this morning where he talks about museums. I mean, just think about this. This is a post from Donald Trump moments ago where he goes, the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen, and I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke because woke is broke. We have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including in our museums. I want to talk about that, but let me show you what state regime media known as Fox is saying. Dana Perino, one of the Fox hosts, she used to be press secretary for George W. Bush back in the day. She's now a host at Fox. Here's what Dana Perino has to say. This is what bothers her on social media. All caps posts, right, Cohen? I mean, she doesn't like immature all caps posts. So I guess Fox, are you saying that what Trump is doing is wrong? Here, play this clip.
The other thing is, or the debate, the other thing for me is that for the last week, Gavin Newsom, and why am I giving him advice? You have to stop it with the Twitter thing. I don't know where his wife is. If I were his wife, I would say, "What? You are making a fool of yourself. Stop it. Do not let your staff tweet. And if you're doing it yourself, put the phone away and start over. And if he's got a big job as governor of California, but if he wants an even bigger job, he has to be a little bit more serious."
And of course, ignoring our president, who every single day, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, all caps, it's certainly hypocrisy at its best. But I did want to touch on our woke museum. Stay with me for a sec, Ben, because I really actually want to see your face as we're talking about, the Museum of Natural History. Museum of Natural History. I was there just a couple of days ago. And as I was walking through, of course, they have the primates, and you have a bunch of primates that are in the display case. They're male and so on. They're all a bunch of naked primates right inside this case. It's definitely woke. And I got to tell you, we have to stop that, Ben. We have to stop it because it's setting a terrible example for all of these young children from these elementary school and middle schools and junior high schools that are going there on class trips to see a bunch of naked primates, one sniffing the ass of the other. It's sickening. I was so taken back from it. I actually asked for my money back. They wouldn't give it to me. And instead, I turned around, I took a pen, and I left.
When I go to the museum, when I go to the museums there, they're actually probably 80% showing what a proud history that we have, right? I mean, whether you're seeing American accomplishments throughout the years in history, innovation, cultural accomplishments, scientific accomplishments, all of that is there. And yes, it does talk about the bad parts of our history as well.
Because it is our history.
It is our history. And for the president of the United States to make a post saying that, why would they cover slavery as a bad thing? They talk about how bad slavery was. Yes, slavery was bad. Yes, it was. And how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. I don't even know what that means. How unaccomplished the downtrodden. Where everything doesn't mean anything. Nothing about, and again, this is the story. This post right there, Cohen. If Obama posted it, if Biden posted it, it ends their presidency. Just this one post. They're done. Your career is over. And by
Can
the
I
way,
ask you a question? Which museum is he even talking about? Because as you know, I lived in DC for 4 years. I've been to the Smithsonian several times. I'm trying to figure out, is it the Wright brothers airplane that is too woke?
talking about the African American Museum. He's talking about the African American.
Is that what he's referring to?
That's what he's referring to. He's
But
talking about
it doesn't specifically
He's
say.
talking about the African American museums, Native American museums. I mean, he's talking about and other, anything that mentions his impeachments. What he wants is what they have in Nazi Germany. He wants the museums. Do we have the photo of Jeremy where he's in the White House with? Oh, yes, we do. So here he is. This is what he wants. Perfect example. This is what he wants the museums to be. So he has the world leaders in the Oval Office. And this is what we saw him do it with Armenia and Azerbaijan. Here, there's French President Emmanuel Macron. You've got Zelensky, and you've got the president of Finland President Stubb of Finland. And so Donald Trump's there with a collection of hats, of MAGA hats that say Trump 2028 and Trump 4 more years for 2028. And he walks the leaders of democracies, and in some cases, last week, Azerbaijan, not a democracy, a dictatorship. He brings them over to this and goes, "Do you like my hats? Do you like my hats?" By the way, when I spoke to California Governor Gavin Newsom, he told us exclusively on the Midas Touch Network the day before Donald Trump sent the National Guard into California and Los Angeles, Newsom was trying to speak to Donald Trump about, what are you going to do? Like, what are you doing? What's the plan so we can figure this out? And he goes, all Donald Trump wanted to talk to me about were the hats. You like my hats? I sell lots of hats. They say Trump 22. You like my MAGA hats? You like my nicknames? You think the nickname Newscom is do you think that's an interesting nickname? And Gavin Newsom's like, Ben, I'm on the phone with this guy, and it's like the most deranged conversation I ever have. Anyway, that's what he wants the museum.
You know the saddest part, Ben? I'll bet you 10 to 1 that Trump was sitting at the Resolute desk and he had the phone on speakerphone, and he probably had a handful of people sitting around, there in the Oval Office, and he's obviously telling them, shush, don't say a single word, and that's where he's playing it up. What do you think about the name Newscom? It's a good one, right? It's good. Maybe I should send you a hat, a Trump 2028 hat, because I have every intention of staying in power. I'm not walking away from this gig, right? That's what he was doing. They were all laughing in the background, egging him on, thinking that, they're the next coming of the American oligarchs. That's what was going on here. I've seen this shit happen before. And that's why I'm telling you, it wasn't like Trump was walking around in the Rose Garden, which is now the Concrete Garden, with his cell phone talking to Gavin Newsom, right? Turning around and saying, hey, just so you know, I have these great hats and so on. Now, he had people that I guarantee were sitting there and laughing and egging him on. And you probably had Howard Lutnick going, that's funny.
You're the funniest guy, Donald. Donald, you're so funny. Tariffs. They're not going to hurt. Tariffs are tax cuts, everybody. I mean, it's the dumbest. Like, I got to find this. There's Foreign Policy Magazine. I didn't put it in your clips, in our clips, Jeremy, but they said it so perfectly when they discussed totalitarian regimes and how they fire, smart people. Like this is across the board with totalitarian regimes. I gotta find this quote because it's so on point. Okay, here's what it says. With Ratcliffe in charge at the CIA, we don't have it, Jeremy, I'm just going to read it. With Ratcliffe in charge at the CIA, the MAGA warrior Kash Patel running the FBI, the conspiracy theorist Tulsi Gabbard overseeing national intelligence, and the Christian nationalist Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, Trump has created the markings of a national security nightmare. And here's the best quote. Everybody just write this quote down. Totalitarianism in power invariably replaces all first-rate talents, regardless of their sympathies, with those crackpots and fools whose lack of intelligence and creativity is still the best guarantee for their loyalty. Hannah Arendt observed this decades ago, and that quote is so on point. Inherently in totalitarianism is this need, while you will always pick the worst people so that they're loyal to you at the expense of we the people, because when our European allies or former European allies, based on how Trump treats them, show up and they see that, they go back and go, this nation is crazy and dangerous. And the way the world used to talk about or America's coalition would talk about de-risking from China, you have to de-risk from China. The world now is de-risking from the United States. Behind the scenes, there is a move. Get out, get out. Now, there are some things that are difficult to extract from, for example, like when Canada has ordered F-35s and you can't have a mixture of planes in a force. So Mark Carney, the prime minister, is doing a review of F-35 purchases because he really doesn't want to buy the American-made F-35s, but because they're dependent on those parts based on the rest of their airplanes, they kind of have to. So he's in a little bit of a bind. But now everybody's looking like, how the hell do we not buy from America anymore, all of these products? Let's just phase out as much as we can. And then what's going to happen, Cohen, and this is why it's going to be important, in the future, if and when we can defeat this regime in the future and we get out of this, which is not a guarantee, but we're going to fight like hell. Not a guarantee at all. We have to fight like hell. I want to be very realist about the moment that we're in. But then what happens? There are so many deadly traps, similar to the way subprime mortgage crashed our economy in 2008. Right now, there's like 1,000 versions of subprime mortgage out there that are just staring us in the face that the media doesn't talk about. I mean, if you just look at the U.S. bankruptcies over the past few months of big, medium, and small companies, they're past the 2020 pandemic levels. This is a major cover-up by corporate media right now about what's happening. They're pretending this stuff isn't happening. We have a inflated stock market right now based on Trump's manipulation of it. And we have real businesses that are absolutely just suffering. If you speak to people out there and you talk to anyone who owns a business, they will tell you we are on the verge of collapse. Most businesses are on the verge of collapse.
How many more times does Midas Touch Network? How many more times does Michael Cohen? How many more times do folks like that are out there, like your brothers or Mike Popak or any of the platforms here on this network have to turn around and say the exact same thing? Tariffs are taxes. All you need to do is go yourself. Nobody's asking you to take anybody's word for it. Go to the grocery store. You are paying right now 22% more for beef. For a regular hamburger, you're going to go do a barbecue on a weekend because it's summertime. That's just what we do. Or your hot dogs, it's 22% more. And how about all of your goods that are coming in from China? Well, those are more too. Okay, maybe they're not the 100% that Trump had promised, so they're only 10%, 15% more. But you start adding all of this up and you take a look at your receipt. At the end, you just went for a couple of items, $100. And you say, this shit's really expensive. You got to start worrying about whether you're going to be able to make your rent. You're going to have to start worrying about whether you're going to be able to afford your medication. You got to start worrying about whether the other expenses are going to be able to be covered, because it's not like you're getting more money in order to cover this. And all of this bullshit that, that the country of origin are paying it, we all know ourselves. And not just because we say it here, because you feel it in your pocket. You go to your big box stores, your Walmarts, your Amazons, your Myers, your Costco's, and you go ahead and you buy a couple of things. You're looking at the receipt. It's like another mortgage. This isn't a joke. And you're feeling it in yourself. Nobody should be able to lie for you or to you when you open up your wallet or you get your credit card bill at the end of the month and you're like, yeah, but I really didn't buy that much. Not that you're right. You didn't buy that much. You're just paying more for each item. And I don't know why people aren't getting it, Ben. I don't know why they're just not getting it. And I'm not talking about our brigaders. Of course, they get it. I'm talking about some of the idiots that are trying to troll us. I'm talking about the three-tooth, four-brain-celled schmucks that are living, in the middle of MAGA territory where they're turning around and they're like, oh, well, yeah, gibbity, gibbity, gibbity. Tariffs are not taxes, right? China's paying it.
Well, we're going to take our first quick break of the show. A reminder, subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. Subscribe to the Midas Touch Substack. Subscribe to this channel. Next week, Michael Cohen, we will do a Patreon, patreon.com/Political Beatdown. We're excited to meet all of you there. Subscribe to Mea Culpa on audio podcast. Quick break. We'll be right back. Two finger salute when we're back.
Oh, yeah. When I was 39, I spent a week in the ICU. It was truly touch and go. And in that moment, all I could think was, if I don't make it out, how will my family get by? When you lose someone close or you face a health scare yourself, you can't help but think about the future. Would your family be prepared financially if anything happened to you? Because the last thing that they should worry about is paying bills on top of grief. And that's why I looked into life insurance through Ethos. It makes protecting your family's future fast and simple. There's no complicated process. It's 100% online. There's no medical exams required. You just answer a few health questions and you can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes and even same-day coverage. And it's more affordable than most people think. Some policies, they start at just $2 a day, billed monthly, and you can get up to $3 million in coverage. 3 million families already have. And as of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. So go right now to protect your family with life insurance through Ethos and get your free quote at ethos.com/beatdown. That's Ethos, ETHOS.com/beatdown. Go now. You know the meal that just ruins you for everything else? Well, for me, it was on vacation in Barcelona. The seafood paella, so good, I thought about moving there permanently. But here's the problem. Most of us don't have a James Beard award-winning chef hanging out in our kitchen, which is exactly why I've gotten hooked on Cook Unity. These aren't your typical heat and eat meals. Cook Unity, they partner with over 160 award-winning chefs, Food Network alums, and restaurant pros making small batch, globally inspired dishes. Like last week, I had Chef Esther Choi's Korean short rib. Tender, perfectly marinated, and the sauce, oh man, I was basically licking the plate. And the best part, it's delivered fresh to my door, never frozen, and ready in 5 minutes. I also love knowing that the meals are crafted with humanely raised meat and organic ingredients when possible. It makes eating healthy easy. No more late night junk food runs, no guilt, just real food that fuels me. And compare it to restaurant prices, it is a steal at about $11 a meal with no cleanup. So get what you're craving. Try the freshest, best tasting meal delivery made by your favorite celebrity chefs. Go right now to cookunity.com, beat free, or enter code BEATFREE before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's Cookunity, COOKUNITY.com/beatfree. And remember, use code BEATFREE at checkout.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown.
By the way, that happens to be a true story. I was in the ICU, it was touch and go when I was 39. I was like 48 hours. Really, it was crazy. My son was 7, my daughter was 11, and I got to tell you, when you're able to open up, you can't talk because you're intubated. And let me tell you something. You got to start thinking about. You got to really think about things like this.
Yeah, no, it's the responsible thing to do. Although sometimes it's hard to talk about for sure. Let's talk about what's her name? Elise Stefanik. Her You saw she got booed. She's from New York's 21st congressional district. She refuses to hold any town halls. She was going to be Trump's pick to be ambassador to the United Nations. The MAGA Republicans then got worried that they were going to potentially lose enough MAGA Republicans in the House to lose control, is what they said. So they pulled her nomination. I mean, and she was like as loyal. I mean, there's almost nobody who took a complete turn in their career like Elise Stefanik. I mean, she presented herself to New York's 21st as a very moderate person, as not like a pro-Trumper, Harvard educated, just, here, I'm here to get business done, just happened to be Republican. And people liked her in that district. Then after January 6th, she was very critical of Trump and she called it, a tragedy. She put out statements, and then she's like, for my career, I need to go full Trump. So she did a complete 180, changed her entire personality, total MAGA, said she loves the January 6th insurrectionists, says that they're hostages, that they needed to be protected. Literally, Donald, you tell me what to do, I do it. I mean, she was as bad as, like a Jim Jordan, more MAGA than Jim Jordan, if you could even believe, more MAGA than MAGA Mike. But she sold out her people in that district who are now going to lose their health care, who are the Social Security offices.
She's the Laura Loomer of Congress.
No doubt. She's become the Laura Loomer. And people there are like, we didn't elect the Loomer, like we just elected someone who we thought would be a normal Republican. Ain't no such thing as normal Republicans anymore. They just don't exist. They're all variations of MAGA. So she knows she'll get booed at town halls. She does not want to meet with her constituents. So she figured, though, I got to do something safe. I got to get out there. I can't just be in my office all day. So she goes to a naming of a government building in Plattsburgh where she thinks this is safe. No way they're going to boo me here. No way am I going to draw a crowd. Watch what happened in Plattsburgh in New York's 21st yesterday. Let's play.
Oh, don't shush us!
I mean, Ben, just say that you feel bad for her.
not even for a minute. So that's how she was greeted. But Cohen, I just think that what's really important, though, from now until the midterms, right? I think Democrats have to see that right there. And the way, to me, Bernie Sanders is going to West Virginia. He's going to Asheville, North Carolina. He's going to be going to Chicago this weekend. I think he may be going to Iowa. He's been going, he's been in all of these places. And by the way, every time I cover a Bernie rally, everybody watches the Bernie rallies on the Midas Touch Network, and corporate news will never cover the Bernie rallies.
Bernie reminds me of one of the two, the two old guys, the two Muppets that sit up in the opera house at the very top. You can't stop watching them. You can't stop watching Bernie. Look, it's not like he's saying anything different today than he said last year. It's not like he's saying anything different today than he said 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 6 years ago and so on. It's just that it's more relevant today because we have gone so far off the rails listening to, this far right eco MAGA system. We have gone so far off the rails, accepting all of these executive orders coming out of the White House as if hypothetically they're going to benefit anybody but the small few. And then the funny is you got a bunch of jackasses like this guy Arturo, who is a MAGA moron, where they just don't want to understand that you too are being affected by these executive orders. Executive orders don't turn around and only harm, for example, Democrats or independents. They harm the people who are sitting there and protecting and lying and voting for this group of dummies. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. That's the whole thing. Again, Bernie's not saying anything new here. It's just that it's more relevant today and every day because of the nonsense taking place in DC.
Like, just think about this, okay? Let's just remove Donald Trump from it for a moment. Just say that, former President X went on TV after meeting with a murderous dictator and said, your country is so hot right now. You're hot like a pistol. This is what Donald Trump said. Vladimir just said to me when we were in private, you've done such great work, Donald. Here, play this clip.
And Vladimir said just a little while ago, he said, I've never seen anybody do so much so fast. He said, your country is like hot as a pistol. And a year ago, he thought it was dead. Everybody thought it was dead.
Let me ask you this. We mentioned.
And who's he saying it to, by the way, Ben? Who is it that he's doing the interview with?
Yeah, he's doing it with Sean Hannity.
Right.
And then over here, he says that Vladimir Putin gave him advice about the American electoral system, and that Putin told Donald Trump that the 2020 election is rigged. Here, play this clip.
Look, you can't run a country that way. Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting, every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election, but mail-in voting, Sean.
And then the very next day, Donald Trump posts, I'm signing an executive order to get rid of mail-in voting. Now, that, the Cohen, other than on Midas Touch, the news cycle then just moves on. And the news cycle will say, could you believe that Mondami wants to take over grocery stores? Whoa. Let's shut.
By the way, that's not even close to a New York accent. But putting all that aside,
could you believe Mondami wants to take over the grocery store?
By the way, that's a bad Bernie Sanders. Hey, do you know that Donald Trump actually voted many times by mail?
Yeah, and look, Donald Trump is taking over Intel. Donald Trump is seizing portions
10%
of companies like Intel
Can we
giving
talk
himself board seats of private companies while he is also allowing American companies for the price of 20%, who knows where the hell the money's even going to then sell AI chips that could pose a national security threat to the United States, to China, right? Like, that's what Donald Trump is doing.
Ben, we have to break this down for our brigaders because, in fact, I'm trying to break it down for myself. I have actually thought long and hard about how this Intel shtick is going to happen. Now, mind you, you do know that in Russia, Putin controls 25% of every single company that's there. But then again, that all happened because at one point in time when they were communist, the government owned everything. And so they kept a retention of 25% of the privatization certificates when they were selling the companies to these individuals that ultimately became oligarchs. Well, that's not the way the United States works. So I'm just trying to figure out, Intel is a publicly traded company. Let's say hypothetically that Intel's, that their valuation is $1 trillion. Okay? Because I think it's pretty close to that. Just for argument's sake, let's say it's $1 trillion. Okay. Well, somehow or another, Trump has the intention of securing 10% of a publicly traded company. How? Is the United States going to buy 10% of the stock of that company? Or is it just that under this Trump administration that he is going to take this 10%? I just don't understand how something like that works. This is a market that's a publicly traded entity that you just cannot go ahead and float additional stock. So I'm trying to figure out how the hell something like this works.
Well, Caroline Levitt was asked the question. Play the clip.
You're welcome. Sure.
Caroline, can you describe the president's perspective on taking a stake in Intel in exchange for federal grants? And is this are we expecting to see the White House make similar arrangements with other semiconductor companies and manufacturing companies?
Well, the president, he's been very clear about the need to reshore manufacturing that's critical to our national and economic security. That is especially in regards to chips and semiconductors, which is why the president has initiated the Commerce Department to conduct a study on semiconductors, a Section 232 investigation, so we can ultimately implement tariffs. And it's why our export license requirements remain in place as well. As for this 10% government stake deal, the Department of Commerce continues to work on it. I know Secretary Lutnick is working on it and ironing out the details, but the president.
Yeah.
So in other words, Cohen.
Yes.
Our taxpayer dollars will be going to fund Donald Trump's deal with Intel. So Donald Trump can take a portion, then no clue where the profits go. By the way, when Intel does this, it's going to backfire in their faces. Like, so you take one of these deals, you don't get out of a deal like this.
And I'm so sorry to correct you. They can't take this deal. I have literally racked my brains trying to figure out how you create 10% additional stock without devaluing the stock to all other 90% of the shareholders that actually paid for this.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, what you would do is Trump would exert the pressure. Then you put it to a shareholder vote. Donald Trump then pressures the shareholders because, the stock, if it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If the shareholders vote against it, the stock tanks. If you vote for it, the stock tanks. And the question is this now his model with all of these companies right now that he's going to go around to private companies, NVIDIA, charge them 20% for them to give their chips and American technology to China at the cost of 20%. And again, this is what authoritarian regimes, central planning actually looks like. And again, corporate news doesn't talk about that. Instead, they're fixated on somebody like a Mondami or a Bernie Sanders or an AOC who are just talking about just trying to make things affordable for workers. And then you have workers who some of them become Trump supporters, who are like rooting for Donald Trump to help the oligarchy at their own expense because Trump has convinced them and MAGA has convinced them that their lives have such little value that they're just cool with being treated like absolute crap. And anyone who tries to help them is somebody who, is someone who they view as the enemy from within because that's the propaganda they're getting. Last quick break of the show. I want to talk about Epstein when we come back, how the subpoena was issued today. And the MAGA Republicans are now saying the DOJ needs until Friday. The DOJ did not turn over the documents they were supposed to today. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, put out a statement basically saying, no, I'm cool with this now. This is good. No, it was due today. Today was the subpoena day. Cohen, if you got a subpoena, if I got a subpoena, and I just say, yeah, we're just going to do it in a few, just do it.
And I did. I got 7 of them that took congressional hearings and showed up to each one. I got subpoenaed to the Manhattan District Attorney for a trial. I got subpoenaed to the New York Attorney General for that trial. Yeah, I got subpoenaed.
Well,
So,
your problem,
so
Cohen, is that if you were Ghislaine Maxwell or the DOJ, Ghislaine Maxwell gets her subpoena pushed indefinitely into the future. Ghislaine Maxwell does, and and the DOJ Epstein files as well. I saw. Did you see? I interviewed her. We broke the story at the Midas Touch Network. Nicole Collier. She's the Texas state representative who the MAGA Republicans literally locked inside the Texas Capitol. They locked her in the building because she refused to sign a letter giving the Republicans a 24/7 chaperone or escort to supervise her 24/7 to make sure that she shows up at the vote where they want to rig the maps. So the Trump regime has given Ghislaine Maxwell more freedom and authority than a Democratic Texas state legislature. I'll just leave it at that. We'll be right back.
As a citizen, I was unconstitutionally remanded because I refused to sign a document that doesn't exist, a counterfeit federal location monitoring agreement. Ended up in solitary for another 16 days on top of my earlier stint for 51 full days. So yeah, I get it.
Quick break. Reminder, subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast. Subscribe to the Michael Cohen Show YouTube channel. Subscribe to Michael Cohen Substack. Subscribe to the Midas Touch Substack. Subscribe to the Midas Touch YouTube channel. Subscribe to patreon.com/political beatdown, where we'll be holding an exclusive meeting for patrons next week. All right, last quick break of the show.
You ever stand in the grocery store staring at a piece of fish, wondering if it's going to taste like the ocean or more like regret? I've been there. And after everything that I've seen and everything that I've done, trust is a luxury, especially when it comes to what I put on my plate. And that's why I'm telling you straight. Wild Alaskan Company, it's the only seafood that I trust, period. When the first box showed up at my door, I was skeptical. I mean, wild caught, perfectly portioned, frozen right off the damn boat. I mean, it sounded too good to be true. But I opened it. I cooked up some coho salmon, pan-seared with a little olive oil and some sea salt. And I swear to you, I haven't looked back. The flavor, clean, rich, real. The kind of fish that makes you realize just how bad that you had it before. And here's the kicker. It's 100% wild caught. No antibiotics, no GMOs, no factory farming. Just fish from pristine Alaskan waters. Caught with care, shipped with purpose, and meant to be savored. Every bite supports sustainable fishing communities. I mean, it's seafood with a soul. So listen, not all fish are the same. And if you want seafood that you can trust, go right now to wildalaskan.com/beat and get $35 off your first box of wild caught greatness. That's Wild Alaskan, WILDALASKAN.com/beat. No risk, no bullshit, just the best damn fish that you'll ever eat. So thanks again to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode. Now go eat like you mean it.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. The Epstein files were subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee. Democrats outmaneuvered Republicans when they weren't expecting it in the House Oversight Committee, were able to issue a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition. That was supposed to take place 8 days ago or 9 days ago. Of course, that didn't happen. And then they also subpoenaed the DOJ files, the Epstein files, all of them. That was due today. With respect,
but didn't they say, Ben, that they're going to release them on Friday?
They said on it they're going to release some files, some of them on Friday, that they're going to select what they believe is responsive and relevant, and then they're going to start dripping it out over the next, several weeks. What they did yesterday is they took a deposition of Bill Barr, of all people, the person who was responsible for unlawfully remanding you along with Donald Trump, who of course has covered up for Donald Trump before. So the MAGA Republican first deposition, who would, if you were doing a serious investigation, the first deposition I would take, obviously the victims, but the person I would take for sure is Alex Acosta, right? The United States attorney from 2007, 2008, who did the sweetheart deal with Epstein. Acosta right now is part of the White House Bible study group, We reported on that. A guy named John Larson did a great story on Substack on that. So we know where this guy Acosta is. He's also on the board of directors of Newsmax. You can find him. Newsmax just settled, I think, a $67 million lawsuit for lying about the 2020 election and lying about the voting software. But any event, Acosta would go first if you were being serious. He entered into a non-prosecution sweetheart deal that tried to cover up what Epstein was doing. So Acosta knows all of the players. Acosta became the labor secretary in Trump's first administration. He knows Donald. He would have seen a lot of the files right around that time when Donald and Epstein had their falling out, right around that 06, 07 period. But he would have had all those files from the 90s and on, late 80s, 90s. So Acosta would have it. But they take Bill Barr. Then they're going to do Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton next.
The greatest with the Bill Barr are the questions that they asked. And in fact, I'm glad that you bring that up because it's actually Bill Barr and James Comer who get my two fingers salute. Bill Barr for just being a fucking asshole, but Comer for absolutely not wanting the truth in the Epstein files to come out, to doing every single thing that they can do to stall, to delay, to deflect, to refuse to turn over the documents that they had all promised for years now, that they were going to release the entire file and demonstrate the Democrat cabal of child sex predators in this country, put an end to it, hold those accountable. But no, you're right, Ben. I mean, spot freaking on. You bring Bill fucking Barr? Seriously, that worthless piece of shit? What did Bill fucking Barr know about it? All right. And by the way, I do truly hope that at some point in time that maybe he does know something and that he lied, because I'd love to see him get his fat ass fucking locked up more than almost anybody else right now. But at the end of the day, Comer, seriously, for absolutely doing everything to avoid this case, to avoid the documents coming out as promised by our attorney general and that group of enablers that stood there holding those 3-ring notebooks. Fuck you both.
You take a look right here as well. Some recent polling data that I'm just looking at coming in right now from YouGov. What's the state of the economy right now? Only 22% of Americans right now believe the economy is good. 4% believe the economy is excellent. 36% to 35% say it's not good, fair, or poor right now. And the Trump regime keeps saying things have never been better. Things are great. I mean, look, Trump was asked over the weekend, how many countries have you made trade deals with, right? Just even like a basic objective. Like the answer is he's done 0 trade deals because there's nothing written on paper. If you want to say how many fake deals did he do, like 4 or 5 fake deals, a fake deal with the UK, a fake deal with Japan, a fake deal with South Korea, and a fake deal with the European Union, and maybe a fake deal with Vietnam, maybe, I'm not really sure. But so he's done about 5 fake deals where we don't know the terms, where he says these countries are giving us trillions of dollars and they're not giving us anything, or billions of dollars, or he said he's gotten $27 trillion from the Middle East, or 17.
Where is that money, by the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line is that if we brought in $17 trillion to our treasury right now, just think about that. We'd pretty much solve all of the debt. I mean, could you imagine? Wouldn't that be the greatest thing ever? Like, if he actually did the thing, it would truly be great. That would be an amazing thing.
I'll tell you one thing, if he did do it, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. I would turn around and I would say, you know what? The guy single-handedly in 6 months, Ben, just knocked out more than half of our national debt.
Oh my gosh, it would be the greatest.
I'd be ecstatic for our children.
We would have a surplus. We imagine how cheap healthcare could be, free education. I mean, this would be there would be housing for this would be the great. But like, just imagine though, Cohen, like, just someone out there. Let's just say they apply for a job and they get a job, and the boss tells them, look, your salary is going to be $150,000 a year. So they show up, they start working, and then 2 weeks go by, they don't get a paycheck, and they're like, "Am I going to get it? Yeah, you get the pay. Well, you'll get the paycheck." A month goes by. Am I going to get my first paycheck? Yeah. I'm sorry. We're going to get you the paycheck. You're going to feel good. Another month goes by. They don't get the paycheck. And then eventually they go, I didn't get paid. You gave me a salary. It was a great salary, $150,000 a year. You didn't pay me. And then the boss goes, I paid you. You're rich. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? It's there. Trust me.
You're so rich. It's in your bank account. You've got it. No, I don't have it. You are rich. Keep on working for me. What do you keep on working for me? So at what point, though, Cohen? I mean, that's when Trump says, I brought in $17 trillion into our treasury. That's then our money. We, the people, let's see it. So we're just being lied to. And then, yes, there is some outrage about it, but the outrage about this open and blatant fraud is so tepid relative to how effed up it is that to me, sometimes I'm like, what are we doing? The guy's just lying about bringing in $17 trillion. You remember, and these are serious topics. You remember back in May, Cohen, Trump posted the drug based on this executive order. Drug prices are now at the FMV level, at the FVN, at the most favored the FVN level, at the MVN. I'm gonna write the third time.
Most favored nation.
Most favored MFN. I'll get it like this time. The most favored nation clause, right. The MFN clause. So that means if in India, say a pharmaceutical company is charging $5 a year for the drug, America gets the most favor, the MFN of $5. So, or if Europe's charging this, whatever, we get that price. He says that's happening now. So your drug prices will immediately go down. I think he said in the Post, 90 to 95% that day.
Nope. He said it's going to go down 100%, 500%, even as much as 1,500%. 1,500%. Basically, you'll be paying near to nothing. Actually, if you understand math, if you're getting 1,500% off the price of a drug, you go into the drugstore, they actually have to pay you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, these are lies of such a magnitude on issues about living or dying, right? Affording medication. And he just tells us that they're going to be the most favored nation price. And then we just move on. And it's like, oh, well, that's just Trump. He just says things. But God forbid California Governor Gavin Newsom mocks Trump by doing an all caps post. And the outrage you see, do you think that's professional for a governor to be?
Well, it's not, Ben, all right? And shame on you for not acknowledging it's not professional. and Newsom should not be trolling Trump. How dare he?
We live in very serious times. And, and again, when I watch that and I see that, I go to myself, like, where has this broke? Is it the greed? Has the outrageous and disgusting behavior of Trump just broken our ability as a society to just collectively think? I sometimes I feel like, the zombie movies where they're like everybody's zombies, but there's like a small group of people who haven't been eaten by the zombies yet. And you gotta, like, sometimes I feel the Midas Touch Network has not been eaten by the zombies and we're in the zombie movie. And I'm looking around me and I'm like, what are they covering? What are they covering? And I turn them on just for a little bit. And I'm like, this is like watching zombies try to eat I turn it off quickly because I'm like, how are you covering this this way? It's so obviously outrageous, this stuff. But anyway.
Look, so Ben, it's one of the reasons why in every single show and really wherever I'm always talking about MTN, Midas Touch Network. And it's why I turn around and if you understand, which I know our brigaders do, if you understand the danger that our country is currently in and legitimately how fucked up things are going to get if we don't put an end to it and a stop to it like now. We cannot wait the 14 months to finally get our shit together and then figure out how to ensure that the 2026 midterm elections don't get adjourned permanently because Trump says there'll be no election because we're in the middle of a war. I have no idea what games that they're up to, but we can't allow it to happen. And that's why I say, please, each and every one of you, pass MTN off to one person who actually does not subscribe to Midas Touch Network. It's not that. Just ask somebody at work. Hey, by the way, do you subscribe to Midas Touch Network? It's the only place that you should actually go if you really want to hear facts, no hyperbole, no innuendo, just pure facts laid out straight by a slew of individuals, myself included, Ben, his brothers, Brett, Jordy, my truly favorite of the three of them. Anyway, they turn around and we actually try to provide with nothing but no opinion, no innuendo, just pure facts. And with that, they too will get a small amount put into their head so that they start coming off of this cult-like nonsense that makes no sense at all. So we leave that. I leave that up to you. I ask you to do the same on our Substacks and on my Mea Culpa podcast or my YouTube channel, the Midas Touch YouTube channel. Why? Simply so that you get facts. No more bullshit. No more lies. We talk about the lies of Caroline Levitt. Why? Let's hammer home truth. And that's what you get here on Midas Touch Network.
Everybody subscribe to Michael Cohen's audio podcast, Mea Culpa. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. Subscribe to the Midas Touch Substack. And subscribe to patreon.com/Political Beatdown, where we'll be hosting a meeting next week for our patrons. And We've grown with no outside investors, so it's one of the ways to help us grow. Thank you, everybody. Great episode, great audience, great seeing you all. We'll see you next time on Political Beatdown. Shout out Brigaders and shout out Midas Mighty.
Boom.